Totems are interactive props that have been present in Dead by Daylight for almost 7 years now. Today they're an essential part of DBD gameplay that pretty much every player is familiar with. But contrary to popular belief, they weren't actually released with the base game on the 14th of June 2016, but instead almost a half year later. Now, with them being this old, it should come as no surprise that they have received quite a bit of changes throughout DBD's history, including a multitude of practically game-changing updates. So, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the evolution of totems in Dead by Daylight, and without any further ado, let's get right into it. Let's start with something that is still being talked about in DBD to this very day, gen rushing. This has actually been a topic of discussion ever since the game's very release, and back then, survivors actually had quite a bit more stuff that they could utilize in order to speed up the generator repair process. First of all, the old brand new parts could instantly repair a whole generator the same frame they were used. Furthermore, originally there was no speed or efficiency penalty for survivors working on the same generator. Additionally, good skill checks would award you with plus 1% bonus generator progression, while great skill checks granted a total of plus 2% added progression. Not only that, but the default gen repair speed was actually only 65 seconds. Not to mention that you only needed to complete 4 generators. Okay, that last one was a joke, but you get what I mean. Gen rushing was starting to become a real problem, and one of the solutions that a lot of players were suggesting back then was for behavior to add a secondary objective for survivors to complete. Well, it turns out that this idea really stuck with the developers, and so, during one of the developers' regular Twitch live streams, Dave Richard, DBD's creative director, teased this image on screen of what would eventually become what are today known as totems. Naturally, the player base was really excited. Finally, survivors were going to receive a secondary objective that would slow down the pace of the game. And so, totems were officially added to Dead by Daylight on the 6th of December 2016 with the release of patch 1.3.0. Now, since these props had just been introduced into the game, there actually weren't any hex perks at that time. So, what did totems do back then exactly? Well, not much. They mostly served as an easy way for survivors to earn a couple of blood points, 400 to be exact. Also, originally the totem cleansing action didn't feature a unique animation, instead the developers just reused the sound effects and animation for hook sabotaging. Additionally, the action's progress would not reset back to 0% if the survivor stopped cleansing the totem, and, much like generators, killers could see the auras of all 5 totems on the map at any time. Things didn't stay like this for long though, as only 2 days after the 1.3.0 patch, Chapter 3 of Flesh and Mud was officially released to the live servers of DBD. This update introduced a new killer to the game, that being the Hag, who brought along the first ever hex perks with her, these being Devour Hope, Ruin, and the Third Seal. Now, I'm not going to get into the differences that all of these perks had back in the day compared to their current iterations, since that's a little off topic. But what I am going to mention is that this update also implemented the first general hex perk in the game, that being Hex Thrill of the Hunt. A couple of days after that, patch 1.3.1b rolled around, which made it so that killers would now only see the auras of hex totems, and so that the progress of the totem cleansing action would reset back to 0% if the survivor didn't complete the whole thing in one go. Now, most of the original totem spawns back in the day were, let's say, not really in the killer's favor. Like, just look at that, it's literally just out in the open waiting to get cleansed by a survivor. It's no surprise that even though perks like for example the original Ruin were without a doubt pretty damn strong, it wasn't uncommon for them to get cleansed in the first minute, sometimes even the first 30 seconds of a match. Totems would receive their first actual changes on the 27th of April 2017, with patch 1.5.0, also known as the update which added Bloodlust and the mechanic for sabotaged hooks and bear traps to respawn. The dual totem cleanse scoring values were increased from 400 to 600, and the ones for hex totems were also increased from 800 to 1000. Furthermore, the total time to cleanse a totem was increased from the previous 10 to the new 14 seconds, and No Wet was also finally changed into being a hex perk, since before that, No One Escapes Death was simply on a 2-minute timer that would start right after an exit gate had been powered. Over the years, totems would receive multiple quality of life changes, the most important one of them being that they became harder and harder to spot, which was certainly a great improvement. The 3D model of the totem would also receive a graphical rework as part of the Realm Beyond Update Part 3 in early December 2020. But something much bigger was on the horizon, something that would forever change DBD and its meta: Boon totems. The concept for Boon totems was introduced with the 5.3.0 patch, also known as the update which implemented the long-awaited nerf to keys, and the chapter which brought Michaela Reed to Dead by Daylight. These new characters' perks were all centered around one thing: totems, with 2 of them allowing you to perform a new type of action to totems, blessing, and in turn, this would activate your selected perks effect. This relatively simple concept, however, resulted in one of the most hated metas in DBD's entire history. Boy oh boy was Circle of Healing unbalanced. Originally, Boon Circle of Healing allowed you to heal yourself without a medkit at 50% the normal speed, but this was directly counteracted by the fact that the perk also provided a 100% speed increase to all healing speeds within the Boon's radius, meaning that you could literally heal yourself without a medkit at the normal self-healing speed, which at that time was 16 instead of the current 24 seconds. Now, granted, Circle of Healing did get nerfed twice after that, but those nerfs never actually addressed the main issue with this perk, which was that it literally allowed you to heal yourself indefinitely without any of your other teammates having to waste time coming and healing you. This countered so many different playstyles, but the one that by far suffered the most was hit and run. All of this made most M1 killers back then feel even worse to play as. Not to mention that, unlike Hex totems which would get destroyed forever after being cleansed, survivors could bless the same totem over and over again, no matter how many times the killer would snuff it. The developers tried to solve this problem by implementing a new general killer perk called Shattered Hope, which would allow you to break totems after snuffing them, preventing survivors from blessing the same totem over and over again. This, in my opinion, should have been a base kit mechanic from the get-go, but I digress. Regardless, Circle of Healing was finally reworked in the 6.7.0 patch, along with the other changes to medkits and healing in general. Now, something I wanted to mention is that even though most players used to say that boons were incredibly overpowered, it was mostly Circle of Healing which they were referring to, as in all honesty, most if not all other boon perks are pretty okay in my opinion, with some of them not even being that good. Before we wrap it up, I can't not also mention the fact that yet another new mechanic for totems was added with chapter 22 Portrait of a Murderer, that being the ability to rekindle broken totems when using the perk Hex Pentimento. Fun fact, this perk also works with Shattered Hope, meaning that you can immediately rekindle a broken totem after snuffing it. Also, another fun fact that I found out about while doing research for this video is that if you throw a pebble inside the radius of a totem blessed by Shadow Step, the scratch marks generated by the pebble will also become hidden. Well, yeah, anyways, I think that was it. I hope you really enjoyed the video. If you did, then consider liking it and subscribing. Let me know if I missed anything down in the comments, I would really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
What's going on?